When you see these battle passes being successful, it would make sense to at least look at the areas where they're successful and some of the things that they do.
They really need to think a lot developmentally what they're going to bring to the table to make it worth it to us. Welcome, MaineMania, to Kombat Talks Black, episode 8. And here we are today to talk about something we kind of disagree on. We think it's going to be a very interesting cast for everyone because we tend to have strong opinions on this. And the topic today is Ascensions in Mortal Kombat Mobile. And I already hear you chuckling there in the background. If you got something to say.
The Ascension system sucks. What is up, guys? It's your boy MaineMania. How's everybody doing today? We've got a lot to talk about, right? So we do have a disagreement in regards to the Ascension system as a whole. But I think what we do share is we share a common interest of wanting to make the best possible system for the player base in general. I think that's definitely where our goal is, our common goal. And even though there's different directions to get there, I kind of think in the end, it's because we both want what's best for the player base and what makes the most sense for the people that actually play the game and enjoy the game versus the people that just make it. You know what I mean? So on that note, where would you start on the Ascension system? What do you think are the strong points? Where do you think there can be improvements? And what's your ideal of what the end goal of the system should be?
Okay, well, that's a lot to process. I think coming in, we can talk about how it rolled out. And it came out back in October of 2022. That was our first season of Combat Pass. And I think we can look at things now. Currently, we've got our season of Deadly Alliance, with our two sorcerers ascending, Warlock Quan Chi and Classic Shang Tsung. But basically, we're 12 seasons in. We're 1 1/3 years later, and we just don't really seem to be any closer to have any answers about where this is actually going. Because at this point, basically all we're doing is we're taking gold cards and we're making them more powerful and we're giving them brutalities, which seems great, but where we use these cards in quick battles or in survival mode, I don't know if you want to throw your brutality gear on your gold cards. And then when you're talking about the matchups, usually these ascended cards seem to bring on matchups with, much more powerful cards. So what's the benefit to players at the end of the day? And I think MaineMania's got a really great point. It doesn't seem like there's much of a tangible benefit there for the most part. But I think that there is an opportunity, because where else is the game going at the end of the day? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of your main bones of contention with it, MaineMania, is that basically you're just resetting our progress. That's what MK Mobile is doing by rolling out Ascensions. All they're doing is making us start all over again, correct?
Yeah, I definitely feel that way. And just to clarify that, I think so. If you look at the nature of this game and where it came from, right? If you just look at the nature of where this game came from and started, the original Max Fusion was Fusion 7. Okay, so for all of the OG players, all the veterans, we remember how it felt when we hit Max Fusion of Fusion 7 on all of our characters, all of our favorite characters. We obviously went with our best fighters and our favorite characters first. We got them to Max Fusion, and then all of a sudden this update comes out and, hey everybody, the new Max Fusion level is Fusion X. We know how that felt because we had so many cards, and most of our favorite cards, fully maxed out, and now all of a sudden they're no longer fully maxed out anymore. We have to grind all over again. We have to do that again. So that was a little frustrating the first time it happened to us. However, with this update, they did it so differently. You know, they did it so much worse the second time around, because not only did they basically say, well, now you're going to have to hit Fusion 20, which is going to be Ascension level X. Not only did they say you have to hit Fusion 20, but they also said, hey, by the way, all these gold cards that you guys have been getting as sellbacks for the last 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 years, now you have to get 5 more copies of them, in addition to 5 more Ascension level up cards, in order to get them to Fusion 15, aka Ascension level 5. However, when you get to Ascension level 5, you are once again going to be put into the cycle of collecting these same cards that you're gonna need to get to Ascension 20 as sellbacks all over again. So it's insult upon insult upon insult after injury at this point with the way the system has been rolling out. And as we can see with the current state of the Ascension system, there is no character that is going or is already ascendable to Ascension level X. Everybody that has been released so far has been stopped at 5. And as you mentioned, we are in what? The 12th season now of the Ascension system?
11th, but yeah, 11th and 12th. Yeah,
so 11th and 12th coming out this patch of the game, which is patch 5.3 that we're currently discussing. And with where we are right now, no Ascended Gold can go to Ascension level X. They're all still stuck at 5. So when does that roll out? If we are in the 10th, 11th season, and all of these characters are still stuck at 5, do you understand that that means for 10, 11 seasons, we are back to getting these exact same cards as sellbacks that we're gonna need all over again when the Ascension opens up to Ascension level X? You know, that's one of the biggest insults to injury in this process. And, you know, not only are you resetting these maxed out cards, but you're also resetting them and cutting them in half this time. The first time that the devs did this, which I'm not against the first time it was done, because it was done a lot more tastefully, if you ask me. You know, they simply opened up the max fusion level to Fusion X, and the next day, if you wanted, you could throw all your souls, you can throw all of your pack openings into getting your characters to Fusion level X. You were immediately capable of remaxing out your characters. So even though it was a little annoying, it didn't feel like a hindrance. It didn't feel like your collection was cut in half and now you have to start all over again and regrind all over again. It never really felt like that the first time they went from Fusion 7 to Fusion X. However, this time it just feels so much different, because now your Fusion X characters need to get to Fusion 20. And what it does to the game as a whole, but also the different tiers of characters as a whole, it's not really, it doesn't feel like it's fair, right? I just give you a quick example. If my favorite character in the game was Devora, and God, no, it's not. Just for the record, it absolutely is not. Devora can kiss my ass. But if my favorite character was Devora, Devora does not have a brutality or friendship in this game. So what if Venomous Devora is my favorite character? While everybody is able to, you know, potentially ascend their favorite characters because it's the popular Scorpion or the popular Sub-Zero, maybe even Katana, Melina. These are characters that have both friendships and brutalities available. However, there are certain characters in the game that have neither. And the way the Ascension system is rolling out, only the characters that have brutalities are the ones that are getting ascended at this time. I'm not going to say that it's not going to come to everybody, But as it stands in its current state, they're specifically choosing characters that already have brutality sets available. So it just doesn't feel fair to the general player base that only certain characters are getting ascended. And now that's introducing power creep over the other golds and also power creep on the lower tier of diamonds. There's so much wrong with the system and the way it was introduced and the way it's being rolled out that I just think it has too big of an effect on the player base. And when I say player base, I'm always talking about the beginner players, the intermediate players, and the veterans alike. We always have to consider the full player base, whether they're free to play, whether they're casual pay, or whether they're, the whales. In the end, we always have to consider the overall player base because everyone needs to feel like they're playing a fair game that does not put them at a disadvantage because of who they like and who they don't like, or whether they spend money or don't spend money. Do you know what I mean? You want to feel as if you still have a fighting chance to enjoy the game the same as the next player.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But that's pretty much the overall, vibe of how I feel about it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you've made some really great points, and I pretty much agree with you on most of those points. I do think, though, that there's a couple things to think about along those lines. Specifically, we've got an issue in that basically only characters that have brutalities are going to be ascending. And so you'd think they'd make it a real priority to kick out the rest of these brutalities. But of course, this update, as you well know, we got a couple of friendships and no brutality. So it's interesting. You'd think, especially like I'm looking at the Kombat Cup team, you could have an ascended Kombat Cup team that all does brutalities if you had a brutality for Cassie Cage. So it kind of messes with the synergy of the team as well to have two cards that can be basically Ascension level 5 and one that can only be Ascension level 10. So really good points. But at the end of the day, where else do we go at this point in MK Mobile? And that's kind of where I've been as a longtime veteran player. And I take your point about, what are we doing to, cater to all players? But I also kind of see it like if you have this card that you really like and you have a limited amount of resources, Ascension cards, ideally in the future, maybe what they're building towards from a developmental standpoint is, you're going to go for specific types of teams builds, when you're a newer player. And that's what you're going to do. And typically, people do tend to build in certain directions. Like if you look at the teams that people use to conquer towers, there's a lot of consistency there, actually.
Absolutely.
You usually see typically the same characters over and over. And sometimes these players can't get their hands on diamonds and get these diamonds fused up fast enough. So I almost see the Ascension system in a way of, casting a little bit of a lifeline to those players where, they're buffing up these gold cards to make them more effective for them in these tower battles, because that's, really all they can manage to max out and have at their disposal in the beginning. But that's the beginner side. The veteran side is sort of like, for me, I've been basically selling back the same cards since the end of 2018, because you ground hard on these cards like you were talking about all the way up to Fusion 7, and then you started selling them back. And then after that, when they bumped it up to X, we all ground on them hard again, but we all pretty quickly maxed out most of our gold cards by that time, and then 2.0 rolled around and we're selling back, most of these cards again. And for me, I do enjoy playing, gold cards. I do enjoy creating challenges for myself in game, but that's really like the main reason that I'm playing these cards is because I'm trying to, do something unique, like set a challenge for myself, create a video, do something interesting. But usually when it comes down to actually building my collection, there's just nowhere left for me to go as a player. And so much of the resources that I'm expending are useless. And I get the frustration that you have after, hey man, we've got all these frickin' sellbacks and you're forcing us to do it again. But I kind of look at it more, instead of the glass being half empty, it's like, hey, I've actually got an opportunity to keep on building. And that's what I like about it, because to me, it opens up more of the end game. It opens up on the beginner side, on the intermediary side. It allows you to focus on the characters that are getting you through the toughest battles, and it's going to give you a bit more of an edge, by having that Combat Cup Johnny Cage at Ascension level 5 instead of just FX. Maybe you can actually beat that battle you were having a problem with. But from my standpoint, it's like, man, these cards I didn't have anything to do with since basically 2018. I can continue to actually start building on them again. But much more than that, where I think it has potential is in the dynamics it creates in the game, and in terms of the properties that Ascended cards actually have. What makes it worth it? Because it's a massive amount of resources, especially for a new player. It's really only a true veteran player like me or you who can look at it and be like, look, we can grow all of our collection Ascended if we want to, because we have the kind of resources that we can do that. And I think at that point, what they're going to have to do, and I think what they will do, is they're going to open up, how you get Ascension cards, as to not just, related to Combat Pass. There's going to be other mechanics, sort of like we see the newly introduced Dragon Crystals dropping in all these different kinds of game modes. Once Ascensions fully roll out, I picture it as, there's going to be many ways to get Ascension cards, and players are going to be pushed to start building their collection to FX so that they actually can ascend those characters that they want to, because they're going to have these cards building up that they can't even use until they hit those levels. Kind of the opposite of the problem that you and I have right now, where it's like, I can't get a damn Ascension card unless I sign up to Combat Pass and basically pay these guys a monthly fee. And I'm with you on that, where it's like there hasn't been enough value in this for players. There really hasn't. And especially the last 2 seasons, we didn't even get a Combat Pass completion offer, which is
crazy,
ridiculous.
Crazy. That was kind of crazy.
You took a couple cards. Yeah, it was crazy. It kind of reminded me of when they brought Pyromancer Tanya out in these pay packs. And it's sort of like, who's going to buy this no matter what? That's kind of what it felt like, because you're just going to send it to Ascend. And they had these ridiculous challenges on the trials too, where you had to KO only Athenian blood characters.
Oh my God, that was. I think I finished at like 5.
Exactly. I paid the 400 souls. Screw it. I'm not even gonna bother.
I want to know whose oversight that was.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I'm much more excited now with how they've rolled out these 2 seasons, how they've got the Combat Pass completion offers coming back now, and especially Classic Shang Tsung. You want to talk about a powerful character to ascend that will have a tremendous impact on a beginner's team, especially now that he's a challenge character and you've got the challenges rolling around. He's in the packs as a regular challenge card. If you max out a character like that, especially if you don't even have these diamond cards yet, you can kind of get a feel for what all of them do by playing him. And I think it's a really cool thing. But again, my contention on this, why I think this is a system that could actually, greatly add a lot of depth to the game, would be wholly based on what it actually does for us. we get something at Ascension level 5, which is cool. It's neat to be able to do a brutality with these cards that previously couldn't get it done, but we need stuff on there like doing brutalities without gear, doing brutalities and friendships without gear, doing a fatality once you hit a certain level, that kind of stuff. So I think they really need to think a lot developmentally what they're going to bring to the table to make it worth it to us. I'm somebody who really loves continuing to build the collection, just because I've been stuck doing nothing with it for about 4 years now.
I can feel your pain on that. I can feel your pain. I do think the Ascension system in general can be saved. I think it can be saved. I just think it needs fundamental basis changes to the entire system in general. Here's what I'll ask you. Let me ask you a pretty objective question, because this is an issue that is introduced by the system. How do you feel about the Ascension fusion stats going up and creeping into stats that rival diamonds, and in some cases like Kombat Johnny, Hanzo Hasashi, surpassing diamonds? How do you feel about that?
Well, so here's the thing. If you're going to ascend all the cards, then you've got parity, basically. And you can go there. You can go those places. Mm-hmm. And I think it opens up a lot of really cool possibilities for in-game stuff. You're going to have ridiculously difficult stuff that they can give us in the future, because we're going to be fighting like ascended bosses or something like that. And you'll have people like Legendus who come in there and still get it done with like silver cards or some crazy stuff. And it's going to be really cool, because it's going to open up a lot of neat possibilities. But yeah, I think it's a problem right now in the balance of the game because of the way that it's being done. And it's a bigger problem because, it was rolled out, and it's this promise to the players about, hey, invest in this now, and literally invest in it, because to really fully utilize it,
you got to pay.
You're going to basically have to pay us $10 a month.
Mm-hmm.
It's a subscription. It's your support of the game. Now, it's never been worth it.
100%.
Previously, really,
mm-hmm.
For what you get. At this point, at least there's a built-in diamond card into it now, because you're getting a total of 150 dragon crystals if you do just the free combat pass. And then you're getting another 250 if you do the premium, which
gives you a diamond that you don't have.
We may have talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you get a diamond card you don't have for every combat pass that you complete at a premium level. And that's quite a bit of value for $9.99 for a new player, at least.
So I can definitely agree with that.
Even for an old player.
And it definitely adds value to veterans as well, because once again, the Dragon Crystals creates a system in which you're guaranteed to get something you don't have. And that's what a lot of people, including myself, has been fighting for a very long time now, is just creating that opportunity to actually grow your collection and get something that you need. Not this random chance, not playing the lottery, not gambling. Give me something that I actually need that will contribute and help build my collection. But I want to switch gears for a quick second, because, we're talking about the Ascension system, but the Ascension system is extremely closely tied to the Combat Pass system. And I think there's a couple of changes for that matter, that the combat system could introduce that could make it a lot more worth it, and then also segue more into the Ascension system. So with the Combat Pass, as it currently stands, there's two things I want to say that I would consider maybe a major gripe